That bottle of olive oil sitting on your kitchen counter right now. The one you drizzle over your salads, pour into your pan before everything else, use in your recipes because you switched to it specifically because every doctor, every nutritionist, every piece of health advice you have ever encountered told you that olive oil is the good fat, the Mediterranean diet fat. The one linked to lower heart disease rates and longer lives across the populations that have used it for centuries. You assumed that bottle meant something real. Olives, pressed, bottled. That is what olive oil has always been. The oldest, simplest extracted food oil in human history, unchanged in principle for over 6,000 years. Here is what almost nobody standing in the oil aisle actually knows. The olive oil industry is considered by food fraud researchers to be one of the most routinely adulterated food categories in the entire global food supply. A 2010 study conducted by the UC Davis Olive Center tested major imported olive oil brands sold in California supermarkets and found that 69% of imported samples labeled as extra virgin failed to meet the international standards for extra virgin olive oil classification. A 2016 follow-up study found similar results. The fraud takes several forms. The most common is blending genuine olive oil with cheaper refined oils, including sunflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil, and hazelnut oil, at percentages that make the blend undetectable to taste alone but measurable through chemical analysis. A second form involves taking low-grade olive oil that has been chemically refined to remove defects and then adding a small amount of genuine extra virgin oil to restore color and some flavor, then labeling the result as extra virgin when it legally cannot be. A third form involves mislabeling the country of origin, with oil from North Africa or other lower-cost producing regions being shipped to Italy, bottled there, and labeled as Italian olive oil without ever having come from an Italian olive. And a fourth form involves using oil from olives that were harvested past their peak, damaged, or fermented, which produces oil with measurably higher free fatty acid content and lower polyphenol content than genuinely fresh pressed extra virgin oil, but which still gets labeled and sold as extra virgin because the visual appearance and the bottling are indistinguishable from the real product. We investigated 12 of the biggest olive oil brands sold across America, looking at sourcing transparency, country of origin specificity, independent testing results, and what the chemical profile of each brand's oil actually looks like when measured against the international extra virgin standard. We are counting down from the least concerning to the most concerning, and at the end I will give you 5 brands that are actually selling you what the label says. Let's get into it. Number 12. California Olive Ranch. California Olive Ranch has built one of the strongest transparency reputations in the American olive oil market over the past decade, specifically around domestic sourcing, clear harvest date labeling on many of its products, and participation in third-party quality certification programs. The brand sources its olives from California's Central Valley, which subjects it to domestic agricultural oversight rather than the more complex and less transparent international import chain that most olive oil on American shelves travels through before it arrives. California Olive Ranch's core products do carry the California Olive Oil Council seal on several varieties, an independent certification that requires chemical analysis verifying the oil meets extra virgin standards rather than simply accepting the producer's word for it. The concern here is not fraud in the way that affects several brands further down this list. The concern is more nuanced. California Olive Ranch has significantly scaled its operations through partnerships with international growers in Chile and Argentina to supplement its domestic supply, and several products in its current lineup blend California-grown oil with South American-sourced oil rather than being purely domestic. The blended origin products are disclosed on the label, but shoppers specifically choosing this brand for its domestic sourcing story need to read the back of each specific bottle rather than assuming the California identity applies uniformly across the entire product range. Number 11. Kirkland Signature Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil, Costco's house brand. Costco members extend enormous trust to the Kirkland label across virtually every product category, and in many categories that trust is well placed based on the quality standards Costco applies to its private label sourcing. The olive oil category is where that trust gets tested more specifically than in most others. Kirkland's Signature Organic Extra Virgin lists Italy as its country of origin on the front label, which satisfies the basic labeling requirement but tells you very little about where the olives themselves were actually grown. Italy is a legitimate and historically significant olive oil producing country, but it is also one of the primary countries through which lower-cost olive oil from other Mediterranean and North African regions gets shipped, bottled, and legitimately labeled as product of Italy under regulations that allow country of bottling to satisfy country of origin requirements in some labeling contexts. Independent testing of Kirkland olive oil by consumer organizations over the years has produced mixed results, with some batches meeting extra virgin standards and others showing characteristics suggesting blending or oxidation inconsistent with fresh-pressed premium oil. The consistency question is the core issue, and consistency across a warehouse store's supply chain operating at Costco's volume is a structural challenge regardless of the best intentions at the sourcing level. Number 10. Bertolli Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Bertolli is one of the most widely distributed Italian-branded olive oils in the American market, sitting on shelves at virtually every major grocery chain at a price point that positions it as a premium product accessible to mainstream shoppers without reaching specialty store pricing. Bertolli was named specifically in the 2010 UC Davis study as one of the brands whose samples failed to meet extra virgin olive oil standards during chemical testing. The brand has been the subject of multiple class action lawsuits in the United States, alleging that its product does not meet the extra virgin standard it is marketed and priced at. Those lawsuits have been settled or dismissed at various stages of litigation without determinations of wrongdoing, but the pattern of independent testing failures and consumer legal action represents a consistency of concern about product authenticity that spans well over a decade in the public record. Bertolli sources from multiple Mediterranean countries and bottles in Italy, using the product of Italy designation that does not necessarily mean Italian-grown olives went into every batch. Number 9. Filippo Berio Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Filippo Berio carries a similar brand positioning to Bertolli, Italian heritage branding, widely distributed across American grocery chains, and a price point suggesting premium quality to shoppers who associate Italian origin with superior olive oil. Filippo Berio was also among the brands examined in multiple independent testing efforts over the years, with results suggesting inconsistency between stated grade and measured chemical profile. The brand sources oil from multiple countries across the Mediterranean region and blends it under its Italian-branded identity, which is a common and legally permissible industry practice but one that creates the opportunity for the finished blend to contain oil that would not individually meet extra virgin standards even if the final blend is represented that way on the label. Filippo Berio does not publish harvest dates or lot-specific sourcing information in a format accessible to retail consumers. Number 8. Pompeian Smooth Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Pompeian is one of the most purchased olive oil brands in the United States by total volume, available at nearly every conventional grocery store at a price point designed to be competitive with vegetable oil options rather than positioned as a true premium product. When an olive oil is priced at a level competitive with vegetable oil, the economic reality of olive production makes it worth asking how that price is possible. High-quality extra virgin olive oil is labor-intensive to produce, requires careful handling from harvest through pressing and bottling within a compressed time window to maintain its chemical integrity, and is subject to significant yield variation based on harvest conditions in any given year. These factors create a cost floor beneath which genuine extra virgin olive oil cannot be produced profitably at scale. Pompeian has faced independent testing that has questioned whether certain products in its line meet extra virgin standards, and the price point alone raises a structural question about sourcing that the marketing language on the front of the bottle is not designed to answer. Number 7. Calavita Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Calavita markets itself specifically around Italian authenticity and quality, with a brand identity built on traditional olive oil production heritage and a premium positioning that implies a step above mass-market competitors on the same shelf. Calavita's product of Italy labeling and its marketing around traditional production methods does not come with publicly available lot-specific sourcing documentation or harvest date information across its standard retail line. Independent testing has placed Calavita in the category of brands showing occasional inconsistency between labeled grade and measured chemical profile. Though results have varied across different testing rounds by different organizations, the brand's multiple product lines, ranging from its standard extra virgin through flavored varieties and blended products, create the same risk present across several brands on this list where the quality level implied by the flagship product's positioning does not automatically apply to every item sold under the same brand name. Number 6. Mazola Olive Oil Products. Mazola built its primary brand identity around corn oil and vegetable oil, and its olive oil line represents an extension into the category, rather than a brand whose entire identity and expertise is built around olive oil production and quality. When a brand whose core competency and historical identity is built around non-olive oils enters the olive oil category, the formulation decisions are made in a different competitive context than they are for a brand whose reputation rests entirely on olive oil quality. Mazola olive oil products at the lower end of their range include blended products that combine olive oil with other oils, which is disclosed on the label in the product name but which can be missed by shoppers who see the Mazola name and the word olive prominently and assume they are buying a single origin olive oil rather than a blend. Number 5. Great Value Olive Oil, Walmart's house brand. Great Value Olive Oil sits at a price point that represents one of the lowest-cost olive oil options on the American grocery market, positioned specifically for budget-conscious shoppers who have been told olive oil is healthier than vegetable oil and are trying to make that choice within their grocery budget. At Great Value's price point, the economic question raised in the Pompeian entry becomes even more pressing. Genuine extra virgin olive oil cannot be produced at the cost that Great Value's retail pricing implies while maintaining profitability across the full sourcing, pressing, testing, bottling, shipping, and retail distribution chain. What fills that gap between honest production cost and retail price is the central question the ingredient panel and front label are not designed to help you answer. Great Value does not publish sourcing documentation or independent testing results for its olive oil products, and the brand carries no third-party quality certification seal from any independent olive oil quality verification organization. Number 4. Private label and store brand olive oils sold under regional grocery chain house names at the lowest price points in the oil aisle. This is the category rather than a single brand, but it represents a meaningful percentage of olive oil sales across America because store-brand olive oil is consistently priced at levels that make it the obvious default for shoppers who want olive oil without the premium pricing of named brands. Store-brand olive oil is typically produced by suppliers who also supply multiple retail chains simultaneously, with formulation and sourcing decisions driven entirely by the price point negotiated rather than by any specific quality standard the retailer holds itself accountable to through independent verification. Without a third-party certification seal backed by chemical testing of finished product, a store-brand olive oil label that says extra virgin is self-reported rather than independently verified, which means the standard is whatever the supplier chose to apply when filling the bottles. Subscribe to the Hidden Receipt right now before we get to the final 3 entries on this list, because what is coming next represents the most documented and the most consequential versions of the olive oil fraud problem. The brands where the gap between the label and the contents has the strongest body of independent evidence behind it. We cover exactly this kind of investigation every single week, and the next 3 entries are the ones that will make you think twice about every bottle you have ever bought. Number 3. Carapelli Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Carapelli is another Italian heritage brand widely distributed across American grocery stores, carrying the traditional visual identity of premium Mediterranean olive oil production, including Old World label design, green bottles, and marketing language built around generations of Italian family tradition. Carapelli has appeared in independent testing by the North American Olive Oil Association and in academic research with results suggesting that some batches in its retail line showed chemical profiles inconsistent with fresh-pressed extra virgin olive oil, specifically elevated free fatty acid levels and reduced polyphenol content, suggesting either blending with refined oil, use of overripe or damaged olive material, or oxidation during storage prior to bottling. The brand sources from multiple countries and bottles in Italy, using the same product of Italy framework discussed throughout this list. Number 2. Sasso Extra Virgin Olive Oil and similar heritage-branded Italian imports at the bottom of the Italian import price tier. At the lowest price point of the imported Italian-branded olive oil category, the product of Italy designation and the extra virgin label appear on bottles whose price points are mathematically inconsistent with genuine extra virgin production economics, and where the independent testing record across this price tier specifically shows the highest rate of grade misrepresentation of any segment in the American olive oil market. The combination of Italian heritage branding, extra virgin designation, product of Italy label, and a price point at the low end of the imported segment represents the specific combination of factors that food fraud researchers have identified as the highest risk profile for olive oil adulteration and mislabeling in American retail, because each of those individual signals suggests premium quality to a shopper while none of them individually or collectively requires independent chemical verification before the product reaches the shelf. Number 1. Unbranded and minimally branded olive oil sold in bulk containers, large format jugs, and generic packaging at restaurant supply stores, wholesale clubs in their lowest cost olive oil options, and online marketplaces where third-party sellers list product without verifiable supply chain documentation. This category represents the furthest point from verified genuine extra virgin olive oil available in the American market. Bulk and generic olive oil at the lowest price tiers has been the subject of multiple documented fraud investigations internationally, including seizures by Italian and Spanish law enforcement of product that was labeled as olive oil but contained primarily sunflower or soybean oil with a small percentage of genuine olive oil added for color and flavor masking. These seizures represent the extreme end of what the economic incentive toward adulteration produces when there is no brand reputation, no independent verification, and no consumer-facing accountability attached to the product. A large format jug of olive oil from an unverified source purchased at the lowest available price is the highest risk olive oil purchase in the American market. That is the full picture across all 12 country of origin labeling that satisfies regulatory requirements while telling you nothing specific about where the olives were actually grown. Extra virgin designations applied to products whose chemical profiles do not meet the international standard for that grade, documented through independent testing across a majority of the major imported brands sold in the United States, and pricing structures at multiple points across this list that are mathematically inconsistent with genuine extra virgin production economics. Before we get to what is worth buying, here is what you can check with the bottle on your counter tonight. Look for a harvest date printed on the bottle rather than simply a best by date. Genuine extra virgin olive oil is a fresh product whose chemical profile and polyphenol content degrade over time from the pressing date. A harvest date tells you specifically when the olives were pressed. A best by date tells you nothing about when pressing occurred and can be set to accommodate oil that was already significantly aged before it was bottled. Buy oil where a specific harvest year is disclosed. Look for a third-party certification seal from an independent testing organization, rather than a self-awarded quality badge from the producer. The California Olive Oil Council Seal, the North American Olive Oil Association Quality Seal, and the Protected Designation of Origin System for specific Italian, Spanish, and Greek production regions all require independent chemical testing of finished product rather than simply taking the producer's word for the grade. Any of these seals on a bottle tells you something the absence of them cannot. Look for a specific country and region of origin rather than a vague blended Mediterranean designation. An oil that lists Tuscany, specific Spanish appellations like Priego de Córdoba, or a named Greek region is making a specific traceable claim that creates accountability in a way that product of multiple Mediterranean countries does not. And run the refrigerator test at home tonight. Place your olive oil in the refrigerator and leave it overnight. Genuine olive oil, particularly with high oleic acid content consistent with real extra virgin oil, will begin to solidify or become cloudy in the cold. This test is imperfect and not definitive because certain olive varieties and refining processes can affect the outcome, but an oil that remains completely clear and fluid after several hours in a cold refrigerator is worth questioning since heavily blended or refined oils maintain fluidity at lower temperatures more consistently than high-quality unrefined olive oil typically does. Now 5 brands that are actually worth trusting. The first good pick is California Olive Ranch Single Origin Domestic Variety, specifically the bottles labeled as 100% California olive oil rather than the blended international products in their lineup. Domestic sourcing means the oil was produced under United States agricultural oversight. Harvest date disclosure is available on most California Olive Ranch domestic products, and the California Olive Oil Council certification means the extra virgin claim was independently verified through chemical testing. It is not perfect, but it is among the most transparent mainstream olive oil options available at conventional grocery stores. The second good pick is Cobram Estate Extra Virgin Olive Oil, an Australian-produced brand that has built its entire commercial identity around certified ultra-premium extra virgin standards with full harvest date transparency, lot-specific sourcing documentation, and participation in multiple independent quality certification programs. Australia has emerged as one of the most reliably transparent olive oil producing countries in the global market, partly because the Australian olive oil industry is newer and smaller than the Mediterranean industry and has built its commercial identity around quality verification as a differentiating factor rather than heritage alone. The third good pick is Costarina Extra Virgin Olive Oil, a Greek-sourced brand built specifically around early harvest olives from a single origin in Crete, with full harvest date disclosure, third-party testing certification, and polyphenol content documentation published for consumers to review. Early harvest olive oil, pressed from olives before they reach full ripeness, produces oil with significantly higher polyphenol content than oil pressed from fully ripe olives, and polyphenol content is the specific compound linked in published research to the cardiovascular benefits most commonly associated with genuine extra virgin olive oil consumption. Costarina publishes polyphenol content by batch, which allows consumers to verify the actual health benefit compounds are present at meaningful levels rather than simply trusting that the extra virgin label implies they are. The fourth good pick is Sika Hills Extra Virgin Olive Oil, produced from olives grown on a Yocha Dehe Wintun Nation tribal farm in the Cache Creek region of California, with full single-origin domestic sourcing, harvest date labeling, and California Olive Oil Council certification. The tribal farm ownership model and the single-origin domestic sourcing create a level of supply chain transparency and accountability that most of the international heritage brands on the avoid list cannot match. The fifth good pick is sourcing olive oil directly from a small domestic producer through a farm direct subscription service, or at a farmer's market where you can ask the person selling it exactly when the olives were pressed and how the oil was stored since pressing. This option is not available to everyone and is not the most convenient choice in the category, but for anyone who has read through this entire list and is genuinely uncertain about what is sitting in the bottle on their counter, buying directly from a producer you can ask questions of and whose answers you can evaluate face-to-face is the single most reliable way to know what you are actually buying. Here is the one rule worth keeping every single time you are standing in the oil aisle deciding which bottle to put in your cart. Look for three things before anything else: a specific harvest date rather than only a best buy date, a third-party certification seal from an independent testing organization rather than a producer's own quality badge, and a specific named region of origin rather than a blended Mediterranean designation. If all three of those are present, you are holding a bottle worth paying for. If none of them are present, the front of the label is telling you a story that the back of the bottle is not equipped to verify. If this changed how you think about the olive oil you've been using every single day, hit the like button right now. Tell me in the comments which brand was sitting on your counter before this video, and subscribe to the Hidden Receipt so you catch it every single week we open up another food label the industry was counting on you never reading closely enough. Stay sharp, verify before you trust, and I will see you in the next one.